Speaking of people who have good icebreakers, John, I'm going to pass it here to Lucas Burke, also an alum of Colonel Lyons's out at NPS. The man has reached everybody, who's now at the Marine Corps Tactical Systems Support Activity and who's the director of the Center for Adaptive Warfighting West.
Great intro. Thanks for that, John. Learning a lot here. Just as I know I'm a panelist, but I'm also a student of everyone that has spoken before me. So I appreciate everyone's comments. And I am, as Aaron Thiss said, bringing it on home. So just a little about my day job. I'm the director of the Warfighter Support Division out at MCTSSA, Camp Pendleton. So I'm on the West Coast out here. And one of the primary responsibilities we have is to provide fleet and joint C4I support to the Fleet Marine Force as they, one sec, let me close down Slack. Joint C4I support to the Fleet Marine Force as they operate and try and communicate, shoot, move, and communicate. So we have a global team of contractors spread across all three MEFs, so Okinawa, Camp Lejeune, and Camp Pendleton and Stuttgart, Germany as well. And in that day job, since taking over as director, one of the things I noticed is we collect a lot of information and data on issues with gear that the Marines are issued, issues with comm gear, and then also ideas. We collect ideas from the Marines, or the Marines have configured systems in a certain way to enhance capability. Now, we have to abide by things like ATOs and configuration management protocols, things like that for that gear. But I started to think, why couldn't we take those ideas and that configuration setting and use our global network of analysts and start collecting them all and see what can we change from a program of record MARCOR SysCom, from the MARCOR SysCom side. So we've founded the Warfighter Solutions team within the division, and Adrian Felder, captain extraordinaire and my OPSO in the day-to-day division tasks, is working with a Captain Mike Bates to lead that up, and Mr. Rick Boat. So right now we're in the nascent stages of it, but one of the first things that decided to do was look at who is innovating in the DoD. And I know that's a very broad question, a very large question, but we don't consider the team or the division innovators from the standpoint of, you know, we build things, we come up with new ideas and prototypes and things like that. But I know there's a ton of organizations already doing it, and I just want to connect the Marines with those organizations and then be able to use the framework we already have in place to provide C4I support, use that same framework and track those problems until a solution's provided back to the Marine. So kind of allow people to meet people type network of the job. Let me see, what else did I want to talk about here? In the job, the other thing I found was from the SysCom side, MARCOR SysCom, I know there's a lot of SysComs on the line. One of the other things I noticed in talking to Tink Lauren Hanyuk is there are a bunch of engineers that don't necessarily have Fleet Marine Force experience. And what I mean by that is they haven't been a Marine, they haven't been out to the field. And so when they're trying to design or create a widget, a box, a thing for the Fleet Marine, you know, they're relying on requirements that may have been, 2, 3, 5, 7 years old. And they're just trying to translate the verbal requirement that's come down from a decision from headquarters Marine Corps into a capability and provide that back to the fleet. So the other thing the team's going to be looking at as we move forward is how do we invite engineers that maybe got their bachelor's degree, got their master's degree, and then went straight out to went out to a warfare center, or went back to MARCOR SysCom. How do we take those engineers and bring them out to a battalion COC in 29 Palms. Not that that's the best place you want to go, but just to see how the Marines are using the gear, see the operating environment, learn some of the nomenclature, some of the processes, and basically provide a civilian to Marine experience for some of the newer engineers or folks that really don't have a well-defined idea of how gear is being used. One of the things Tink mentioned, and a couple of other engineers have mentioned, is, they'll go out to the field and they'll realize Marines, like, we never thought that Marines would ever use that piece of gear like that. And never underestimate the ingenuity of a Lance Corporal that's been in the field for 28 days, because they will find very unique cases in which to use gear in ways that may or may not be approved. So that's the other half of this conversation, is not only collecting those problems and delivering the problem and the idea to the engineering side, but also taking the engineering side and trying to provide a better, a holistic view of how the Marines are using the gear that have already been fielded to better inform future engineering challenges. So,
Lucas, let me just jump in real quick here. We had a question about what C4I means, and you mentioned ATOs as well. Quick jargon giraffe for you.
Oh, jargon giraffe. So C4I, I just pulled up the Q&A. So C4I is command and control, computers, communications, and intelligence. So it's kind of the C4I is the overarching term for a lot of the boxes and networks that we use. ATO's authorization to operate, authority to operate. Basically, it has to be approved by Headquarters Marine Corps from a configuration setting that, this box with this configuration setting is approved to operate on this network. So it's a lot of policies and things that dictate that, that the Marines have to abide by out in the field. But great questions, and thanks for catching me on the jargon giraffe. Let's see. That was a really quick rundown of what we're trying to do, but ultimately, our capability as the MCTSSA support center in supporting the equipment in the hands of Marines. Our goal is to become the single point of contact for the Fleet Marine Force. So if they have an issue, or they have a configuration question, or, hey, this button isn't working like it used to, we want to make sure that they're calling, our help desk and our support center to get everything that they need, be it a technical manual, over the phone troubleshooting, or even requesting on-site support, like, hey, we're setting up for a large-scale exercise and we need folks to come out. By being the single point of contact for the entire Fleet Marine Force through our smaller teams spread around the globe, we can capture all that data, we can capture those questions, we can capture those issues, and not only provide it back to SysCom, Mark resolution engineers there. But we can also look at that internally and working with guys like Kat and Matt Audette and looking at 3D printing, kind of sourcing some of those things internally. John, unless you have anything else, that's the idea of the Warfighter Solutions team. Again, we're building it out. It's in its nascent stages. I'm talking to Tech Solutions, ONR's Tech Solutions, tomorrow morning, bright and early, to see how we can coordinate with them and make sure that through our framework and portal, we're passing them the appropriate questions, because they have a solution generation, innovation engine that they're using to provide prototypes to the fleet, and under, I think, 12 months is their goal. And then working with teams from NavalX and the Tech Bridges, Josh Kaplan, I think I saw you on. So yeah, we're trying to lean forward with the Warfighter Solutions team, and then augment through the CAW as well.
So actually, Lucas, that's a perfect segue, and on some level, the perfect set of notes on which to move towards conclusion for the day. Interestingly, I think the Warfighter Solutions team and MCTSSA sit bestride basically every one of the substantive areas we've covered today. Continuous education and bridging the gap between what we teach in our educational institutions and what Marines actually need out in the fleet. You're implementing, in fact, you're one of our leaders at figuring out how to adapt Scrum to usage in the fleet. You're running design thinking, you're working closely with Matt Audette and also the research and development, testing and evaluation enterprises to make sure not only that equipment is where it needs to be when it needs to be there, but also that it can talk to all our other equipment. That gaps of all sorts between the things that Marines are supposed to be using are able to be bridged. So first of all, I'm impressed, and we should probably raise up here just for 1 second that you can spend so much time in so many areas simultaneously. That's not a thing all human beings or all organizations are capable of. But then in addition, I wonder if you could talk a little bit about why you were so eager to be the tip of the spear for the Centers for Adaptive Warfighting out west.
Of course. Why, John? Great question. So my interest in all of this really started at, pre-NavalX, pre-CAW was really started with Colonel Lyons and Dr. Denning, who was my thesis advisor at the Naval Postgraduate School. So I took Colonel Lyons' Innovation Leadership course and loved it, had a blast, and realized that, in my opinion, my humble opinion, and I was actually out for Mr. Kroger's brief, but I felt like NPS was being underutilized. We have the DoD reaches out to Stanford, they reach out to Berkeley, Carnegie Mellon, MIT, all these big name schools, but NPS has a unique set of capabilities, and that's active duty officers and staff NCOs with not implicit knowledge of the problems facing the DoD. So my love of being able to connect people started at NPS and realizing that I don't need to have all the answers. I just need to be able to know who does and start connecting people together. And so I've basically carried that forward and to my day job with the Warfighter Support Division. And when I met Brandon, actually reached out to us for a website development question, and John met up with John and ultimately saw that this was, to use Drew Barker's term, this was my tribe. This is the group of folks on Slack or on a text message or meeting in person with CAW work. Like, this is my group that really means a lot to me. And I think as we look forward to the future of national defense, it's going to start with organizations like the CAW and NavalX. And how do you break the paradigm down? How do you remove the barriers? How do you instill new processes into the old industrial? To coin a term from the Commandant's Planning Guidance, the Marine Corps Commandant's Planning Guidance, how do you move us from the industrial age to the information age? And the fact, for that at this point in history, we're already behind the power curve. So I look at organizations like NavalX, MCTSSA, SysCom as ways that we can leverage what is available and move the DoD forward.
Man, you can wish for it, but you can't guarantee that you're going to get a wrap-up moment like that one for any webinar. Yeah, Lucas, thank you so much, man. That's incredible.
I'd just like to add, if anyone has any interest, lucas.burke@usmc.mil, hit me up. If anyone has any interest in the Warfighter Solutions team and how we can tackle this problem and get the Marines and the sailors that we run across, get them the help that they need and want.